a year ago I had a terrible nightmare. It started off with me waking up in bed during a thunderstorm. As the room illuminated from the flashes, I realized that the bed I was laying in wasn't mine. The head of the bed was against the wall, and from my perspective, I couldn't tell if it was open or closed. That is until I saw the face. At first, just the nose and jaw broke past the door frame, then the entire face. I tried to yell, but it felt like I had lost my voice. No matter how hard I tried to scream, nothing came out, and this being continued to enter the room, looking dead ahead, away from me. Then just as it entered, its head snapped towards me, and it locked eyes with mine. I tried to get out of bed, but felt completely paralyzed. The being started making its way towards me, but with every step, its body contorted. If it was a man, every bone in his body would have snapped. Just terrifying. And right then and there, when it was closing in on me, I woke up. The next day I told my mom about it, and went into a great deal about the room. Turns out it was almost an exact copy of my room when I was a baby. We moved out of that house when I was super young, like I have no idea what the room would have looked like if my mom didn't tell me. It was so weird. I once had a dream and it started off fairly normal, as far as my dreams go. I was with my cousin, who is also my best friend. She's around my age and we were traveling and ended up stranded in this quaint small village. It started as a cute English sort of village, think Hot Fuzz pre-murders, but the dream quickly escalated into a nightmare. I started noticing strange things. Like all the people were collectively hiding something from us. A dark, terrifying, something. Eventually I catch on, I find my cousin, and tell her we have to get the hell out of there. This sort of plot isn't unusual for my dreams, though more unsettling than normal. However, the strange part came when it turned into a full-fledged nightmare. I dragged my cousin out of the town and to a main road at night, trying to get away from whatever was going on in the town. As I did this I realized we were being followed by some sort of ghoulish monsters in the trees above the road. They were fast and horrifying and I was in a full-out panic. Near tears, still holding on to my cousin's arm as we ran. Suddenly, amid the panic I had a clear thought. It was the weirdest dream experience I've ever had. All of a sudden it was like puzzle pieces clicked into place. I slowly stopped running, because I knew, this is just a dream. None of this is real. I don't have to be afraid because it's not real. Though as I tried to stop, my cousin got more frantic, looking at the monsters which were around us. She was yelling at me to keep running. Pulling on my arm now, crying, telling me that we had to go. I remember looking at her and thinking how strange it was, she was just like real life. I glanced up at the ghouls in the trees and they had stopped. They were just dark shapes in the trees now, not actively pursuing us. Then I looked back at my cousin, she had gone quiet. When I looked at her this time though she was no longer my cousin. It still looked like her but she was staring at me, her face and eyes cold, hard, and angry. It said, "When did you figure it out?" I didn't answer but it was clear it knew I realized this was a dream. It was extremely angry that I had found out, like everything in my dream had been working to create this nightmare and I had found them out and ruined it. It stared at me a minute longer, I stared back terrified. What was I supposed to do? I was completely conscious, as if I were totally awake. I was dreaming but this thing was something else. It was also conscious and everything about it was terrifying. After I didn't respond its lips twisted in a bitter, menacing sneer, and I woke up. I knew it had allowed me to wake up. Nothing like that has happened to me since, but my dreams are totally different now. I can't help but wonder what sort of thing is controlling them and I fear ever realizing I'm dreaming. I figure it's just a malicious part of my unconscious working against my conscious, but I can't help but wonder how it was so separately self-aware. Back in 1987 I was sitting in class, and had to this day, the most intense and vivid daydream I have ever experienced. I was sitting in class looking at the clock, then the next thing I know, I am walking through the mall with a woman who I never met before. I was an adult and I knew she was my girlfriend. As we were walking, and talking, some guy started shooting people randomly. Before I had the chance to react, I felt something like a punch to my chest. When I looked down, I was standing over my own body with a pool of blood spreading around it. I watched the chaos of the scene unfold in real time. My girlfriend was over my body screaming, and I was trying to comfort her. I watched the police neutralize the shooter, then the other emergency workers clear the scene. I watched them remove my body. I tried to follow, but I was unable to leave the mall. I lived, or haunted the mall for a couple of years. As a spirit I was bored, so I would mess with the security guards during the night shift. During the business hours I would try to interact with the customers. Every now and then I could get someone to nod hello, or walk around me so we wouldn't collide. I remember an elderly man sitting on one of the resting benches have a heart attack. As he was standing over his body, I walked over to him to comfort him. I had an overwhelming feeling that it wasn't his time to die, and I told him so. He climbed, or sank back into his body as the emergency workers were resuscitating him. One day I was sitting on one of the resting benches, and a young boy about the age of 6 or 7 years old sat down next to me. He started talking to me, and when he did, I felt something weird happen. I knew I was to leave with him. I became his invisible friend. His name was Brian, and he was an only child, of a single mother. She was an abusive alcoholic. I helped him survive life. I taught him not to talk to others about me so they wouldn't think he was crazy. I experienced being with Brian for years. When he was about 10 years old, his mother came home drunk. She went into a drunken tirade and hit Brian. I lost my temper, and was able to slam her into the wall. She never hit him again. I watched him grow up to a teenager, and when he was 18, I knew that my time with him had come to an end. We said our goodbyes, and just like that, the daydream was over. I looked at the clock and maybe a minute had passed. I had experienced just short of 2 decades of existence as a ghost in a minute of time. As a child, my parents always introduced me to everyone that ever came to our house. I was taught to shake hands and say hi, I'm so and so. What is yours? This was a rule that could not be broken. One night when I was 7 to 8, I had a bad dream about being old. I went out to the living room to talk to my dad, who always used to play with Legos with me when I had a bad dream. This time we got the Legos out, but there was a man in the chair. I went to introduce myself, and to my surprise my dad shooed me away, got out my Legos and proceeded to talk to the man instead of playing with me. The man and my father talked for some time about things I don't understand and neither say a word to me. It was weird, but I was young and the Legos were fun, and eventually I forgot the whole thing and went to bed. Never thought about it again. Fast forward 12 years. I head to bed one night after having a beer or two with some friends and immediately start, from what I can tell, lucid dreaming. I've never had a dream this vivid since or before. In the dream, I am sitting in a chair talking to my dad about what I have done with my life. He is happier than usual and very interested. In the distance I hear a young person calling for him. He gets up, walks out of the room, and returns a minute later with me as a child and a box of Legos. Young me approached the present me, but my dad shoos child me away, who then leaves and proceeds to play with his Legos. My dad and I commence talking about the danger of the butterfly effect and how everything could change if we spoke. He insists we wait until young me falls asleep to continue talking about the future. I then have 2 more similar dreams where I see myself from perspectives of mysterious forgotten people and situations. All with my father, all discussing time travel, my future life, and the consequences of changing things. I woke up absolutely convinced I had time traveled, or the ghost of Christmas past decided he wanted to take an off-season shift. It took me a week to rationalize it and still gives me the willies just typing it out. I've never told anybody this. This is 100% true, but I've never been able to actually put it into words. I was about 13 years old and my grandpa was dying. He had been ill for a few years, but it was getting worse and he had weeks, maybe days left to live. In an attempt to take my mind off things, my parents sent me and my 10-year-old brother to summer camp for a week. Even though my brother was oblivious, I knew my granddad probably wouldn't be there when I got home. We arrived at the camp on the Sunday afternoon. We had an orientation and went to sleep. The next day on Monday, We had a day of activities and food, and then went to bed. I couldn't sleep that night because of my granddad, and I just laid awake crying and being upset. It was 2:48 a.m. when I finally started to doze off. All of a sudden, a really loud voice shouted something in my ear. It was a female voice and it echoed. It sounded, and I know this sounds stupid, like an angel. It shouted, and I'll never forget this, "His time is up, his time is now." I remember sitting up really fast and then bursting into tears. I never told anybody about it, even to this day. As you can guess, I got home and my mom informed us in the car that my granddad had died at around 3 a.m. on the Tuesday morning. I was terrified. I'm not an emotional person, and am usually not emotional about this kind of thing. I wasn't even that upset when he died. This will probably get buried, but I don't care. I needed to type it out somewhere after bottling it up for 8 years.
Wasn't that fun? Leave a comment with your own glitch in the Matrix story, so it can be featured in upcoming videos. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more quantum tapes.